Hello, hello internet, hello again. Hope you're all doing well on this Friday. Welcome to the second episode, installment, whatever we want to call it, of Music, Mental Health and Me. I want to start by saying two things. First of all, thank you so much for all the comments and response that I've had to the first video. I really appreciate it, and it's it's good to hear that the video was some help to some people, and that's all I'm really aiming for. To be honest, I'm looking to change the world, or write a tale of woe, just talk about things, put things out in the open, hopefully spark something in your head that maybe it's worth talking to someone about something in particular. So that was the first thing. The second thing, as I touched on with the first video I did, with it being around mental health, there is going to be some comparatively lighter and comparatively darker conversations that I'll be having with my phone, but you, the viewer. And today is definitely in the dark end of things. So I wanted to say up front that today we'll be talking about death, it will be talking about suicide, and it will be talking about grief. So I appreciate that those are things, again, that are not unique to my experience of this world, and I know that it can be something that is harrowing, no matter how recent or long since it has happened. So I want to put that up front. So if those are themes that you don't wish to revisit now, or even just a case of don't want to visit full stop, that's totally fine. Please stop the video at this point. So, premise of music, health, mental health and me. Talk about a song and how it relates to my journey with mental health. Again, just designed to be a means of having an open conversation. Maybe something will ring true to you, or like, oh, that sounds familiar, or perhaps you will recognize something in somebody else in your life and go, oh, there's a bit of that going on, I wonder if everything's okay. So today's song is Lotus by Soen. So people part of kind of the Sheffield scene will already know where we're going with this. A, the picture over my shoulder, and B, the t-shirt I'm wearing. So I've thought about what I want to say, but I've really not kind of formulated a good way of saying it. So I'm just going to open my mouth and hope for the best. Today is the eve of the first anniversary of us losing our good friend Dario. He was a massive music fan, also a massive Inter fan, hence the shirt I'm wearing. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to do my best to stay in one piece and make this coherent and watchable. Probably work backwards. The song song Lotus by Soen, great start, Paul, is one that I wasn't really aware of until after his passing. The reason I came across it was in the wake of him leaving us. We've been looking at and have done various activities to raise money for good causes, to raise awareness about the kind of things that we later learned that he was facing. And one for all the music nerds out there is a website called Rate Your Music, kind of like IMDb, but for music. And people who are keen cataloguers of music, like, I'm guessing you may be watching, so the Joes and the Gazes and the Riches and those kind of people of the world. But Dario was also very prolific on that site. So when you rank the albums, people can set their own premise of what a 5 out of 5 means versus what a 1 out of 5 means. So looking for inspiration for some music to play at an event, I went to Dario's page and I had a look through his 5 out of 5 albums. I listened through them initially with the view of finding something I could do as an acoustic cover that I thought would be a nice little tribute, but also later looking at the fundraiser we did a little while ago for Sheffield Mind and for Key Changes, which was really successful. And thank you again for everyone who came to that. So came across the album by the same name, Lotus by Soen, and I gave it a listen. I knew a few tunes from them, but wasn't that familiar with their back catalogue. And so I keep saying Soen as the title. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm as ready as one can be for this episode, but not fully there. And yes, I came across the Lotus album and the title track Lotus, and it just resonated with how I was feeling in that moment, and to be honest, how I still feel. I should stress at this point as well that I have kind of taken the steps I thought I needed to in order to fully discuss about Dario. Main one being, obviously, with this kind of situation, there is a lot of darkness and a lot of negativity. So you have to remember to look at the positives as well. And one of the positives that's come out of this is getting to know Dario's sister, Marta, really well, and I would say that she has become a good friend out of all of this. Obviously, the way it's hit myself, my other friends here in Sheffield who knew Dario well, cannot compare to the impact it's had on her and had on their parents. So, but the reason I specifically bring up Marta is that I've had lots of conversations with her about this. We've been talking very regularly since everything happened, and I have essentially asked for her blessing to talk about Dario in this context. And very graciously, she's very keen for me to, again, like with the fundraiser, anything that spreads awareness, spreads the message, and keeps his memory alive. As I alluded to before, again, I'm not very. This one's not really going to stay on focus, but I hope you'll appreciate, given the topic. That's it should be fairly self-evident. So, not long after it happened, I went and got this picture printed, which is myself, Gaz, my wife Kathy, our friend Libby, and Dario going to Gizzard Fest in Rotherham a few years back. And it came to light that was basically the most recent picture I had of him, and one of the few I had of me with him. So I made a point to put it up here. I've also got, our friend Phil is an excellent artist, and one of the things that he did in the follow-up is he took one of Dario's profile pictures and he turned it into an art piece. So then for the event, and the frame's out of the way, so I'm not going to try and pull it up now, but you'll have seen it on my social media. I put together a photo montage for when we had the fundraiser, and I put this one in a frame so I could have it on my DJ setup so everyone could see it. And since then, it's been living on my desk. So yeah, this one's really not very cohesive, but again, I hope you appreciate given the nature of it. So again, talking briefly about small positives. One of the small positives about having these pictures is, and having them here where I spend most of my my time either working at the real job or working at the music stuff that I'm aspiring to, is that he is always in my thoughts. The other thing I talked about, obviously, that this was about death, suicide, but also about grief. I was not prepared for how this would affect me. I have, even just within Sheffield, I have friends who've gone through similar kind of experiences in terms of losing someone when they elected to take their own life, and the fact that oftentimes grief is portrayed as being like a moment in time where you have like the funeral and a wave of emotion hits you. But in my experience and through learning from other people's experience, it's not always like that. Sometimes it's little by little, and it comes and goes in waves. I guess not dissimilar to how depression works, like I talked about last time. But the thing that really kind of stuck with me is that this was kind of my first true experience of grieving for someone. So even now, like, a day shy of a year later, um, it's not the easiest thing to talk about. And again, this is not me looking for some kind of like sympathy. I'm not the only person that this incident alone has affected, and I'm certainly not the most important person it's affected. But wanted to make a point with these videos to talk about my experience and not to like piggyback on somebody else's situation. So, so to try and bring it back to um, the song captured kind of how I was feeling and how I wanted to try and get through it in a way. Um, I won't try and like sing it for you right now, but there's some particular bits that stuck with me. See if I can get the. So gather around, holding close your sons and daughters. Promise them that it will all be all right. Let them know you love them all. And when I got to that point in the song, I knew that the song had its hooks in me, and I knew that it was the best articulation of how I was doing at that point, and still am. Hopefully, it goes without saying that I miss him a lot, and I knew he was a good friend. I knew that we got on really well and that we had a lot of common ground, a lot of shared interests, shared humour. But it was only after the fact, and hindsight's 2020. I realised I don't think he was a good friend. He was a great friend, and yeah, he is sorely missed. Not just by me, by the people in our music scene. He would so avidly support. He would proudly tell us how many times he had seen the band and where that particular performance ranked within the list. I mean, even just my music stuff alone, he saw me play comfortably 15, if not 20 times. Often, very close together, like weeks apart, but he'd still be there all the time. And not just me, like loads of other local bands, people like Bar, people like Archelon, all these bands that are part of our little quote-unquote scene. And any time there was a bigger band coming through, bigger in our realm, like the likes of your Conjurers and your Boscoloids and your Elephant Trees, those kind of people, he would be there. 100-Year-Old Man, all these kind of bands, dystopian future movies, Gravelines, he would be all over it. Kurokuma, whose name I'm probably butchering, but I gather everybody butchers their names, so I'm sorry. So the song has been a good kind of anchor point for me, personally. There's no real flow to this video today, as you're probably telling, but I am keeping myself together, and that makes me happy. And again, I'm not trying to go, oh, woe is me, because this is not exclusive to me. Dario's passing is not exclusive to me in being sad, in being poignant, and in being a lasting, lingering effect. Both the memories that we have and the loss of him being gone. And I know that there are people out there who have, like I say, have lost people similarly at a similarly young age, with similarly unknown reasons, limited signs. So I guess what I'm trying to say with this one is, even more so than what I talked about last time, if you have any kind of hint that someone in your life is struggling, like it could be something simple, like someone who posts routinely on Facebook goes quiet for a few days, or someone who's usually quick to reply to messages or quite verbose with their replies either doesn't reply or is really short, or if someone is usually quite outgoing and forward when you see them in person and they're unusually withdrawn or reclusive, or they seem distant. There is no harm in saying, "How are you? Are you okay? You don't quite seem yourself tonight." You don't have to go into one piece. You don't have to extract everything out of them. But even, like I said last time, and even more so with this topic, there's the best thing you can do is be there, and let them know that you are there, because sometimes that can be all it needs. I mean, there are so many reasons why people make that decision, and he was a grown man, he was an adult, he made that decision. It wasn't spontaneous, it was something that he had considered and he had elected to do, not as a whim, but so I don't hold that against him. I'm not angry at him about that, because what right would I have to be angry about that? The thing that's lasting is, obviously, aside from him being gone, is that he felt that was the only way, that was the only resolution, or that was the best of a bunch of potentially bad options. So, yeah, so no real flow to this one, but I'll try and summarise. Again, there's no harm. If you have any inkling at all, please just ask, "How are you? Do you want to talk?" It sounds really simple and mundane. I'm not trying to undermine anyone's situation, but sometimes just knowing that someone wants to know how you're doing and wants to listen can be enough to at least start a conversation. It may not change the result, like, I don't know. You play through the, "Oh, what if I'd," and it's not healthy to do. It's natural, but it's not healthy. There is no way of knowing if a conversation that I started or someone else started with him would have changed the outcome. And I wouldn't be so arrogant as to assume that I could have talked him round or anything like that. And who would I be to do that? He was his own man. He made his decisions. He was an assured man. He particularly in the last few years, had grown and grown in confidence in terms of himself and being comfortable in his own skin, which is, I think, probably the biggest reason why it was such a shock, beyond the, I guess the obvious. Yeah, there's no flow today. So I'll have a second try at summarising it. If there's someone you care about and you are concerned, please just ask how you're doing. The song Lotus, for me, captured, I guess, how I wanted to deal with the situation, which is to be there for others and hopefully they would be there for me. And, that has been the case. I'm immeasurably thankful to the people who've been there for me through this. And again, I know that on the scale of priorities, I'm nowhere near the top. But I'm also really glad that I, in return, have been able to be there for friends who have needed help through this as well. And being able to be there for Marta, Dario's sister, that's been important to me, because they were so close and they were so fond of each other, and he would talk so highly of her, and to her he would always talk about the things he loved about the Sheffield life and the music scene here. So yeah, I think that might be all I have in the tank. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that, if nothing else, it's a good demonstration of that it's also not always very easy to consolidate your thoughts on something of this nature, but that in itself can be a good first step in going, I have a few feelings, but I have no idea how to form them into a sentence, which, has probably been the case watching this. So I will sign off by saying thank you very much for watching. I hope that this hasn't triggered anything too traumatic from your own life, from your own experience. I hope that if you, like me, were close to Dario and appreciated him for his support and his warmth and his humour, that you, like me, will help to let his name live on. Yeah, that's definitely what I've got left in the tank. So thank you again. I will put some links in the description like I did, like to the song and whatnot. I'll also put the organisations that we raised some funds for down below. So if you do need help, if you want to help someone but don't know where to go, there's some resources there. Yeah, that's it. Be kind to each other, take care, look out for each other, and